It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. It costs that much cause I don't have superpowers. So you need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. You need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Changed the name of the high school and all James was can say is ooh, a piece of candy. 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 When a ball turned into a vampire, all James was to say was ooh, a piece of candy. 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 Sat around the house and said, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that James Woods priced his lingerie well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that he's not good, the best of them always says, ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. Reese's Pieces on the floor and watch him come a saying, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that James Woods pressed his lingerie well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, candy.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
So, a creature for my amusement. Prepare for battle.
Fucking thing sucks!
Well, hello, everybody. It is a wonderful evening here in Brooklyn, New York. A little on the warm side. I blame myself for that. That's enough from the peanut gallery. All right, let me have this. Let me just have this one thing.
You're
good evening.
Uncle
we got the power panel on here coming up in just a second for our GenXtra special, GenXtra Bulla, right? We don't use ages or numbers. We're not accountants, so we know how old we are, and you know that's fine. We're the forgotten generation. Nobody cares about us except for us. All we have is each other.
All we have is us.
It's a damn right. Let me shout out who's here already. We got Game.film. Ed Heller's here. Arturo, good to see you. Art. A lot of Chicago Corner regulars here. That's good. Kim, my New York peeps. Good to see you as well. Two people watching on the Rockfin right now. Yes, we are on Rockfin. So, If you want to watch on Rockfin, that's fine. It's rockfin.com/extra-bulla. Just got that brand spanking new, straight off the showroom floor. Enough wasting time. Let's get to these wonderful folks here. Let me do that, and yay, there we are. Hello, you are all on the screen right now. We got Christopher Neal is here, Black Bruce Wayne on Twitter. He was my very first guest on Extra Bulla about a year ago. So we get him out of the bat cave once a year for these little shindigs. The lovely and talented Lainie Petersen from 99 Perspectives, Tara Reade, the enchanting Tara Reade, she is here as well, and the Chicago Batman, Jerry Vasilatos from Chicago Corner. Wow, I am in awe of all of you folks being here with me tonight, because I know you damn well have something better to do with your time. So thanks for being here.
I don't think so.
No?
Nothing more than I like to spend my time is with you, Uncle Warren.
With the kitty. What's your cat's name, Lainie? Oh, wait.
He knows what's coming. This is Ned.
Ned
the kitty? Okay. Very nice. Where's Oreo, Jerry?
Well, he was here a moment ago, and I think
I saw him.
He showed everyone his butt and then moved on, but I'm sure.
Yeah,
we saw his butt.
Yeah.
Oh,
cool name.
And my kitties were here, but they left. They're like, okay, we're out. I'm so sorry. They'll make an appearance again.
When you least expect it, right? Chris, do you have any pets? I think, are you?
Yes, I have a cat, and she never comes out unless I'm on the couch. So she's somewhere.
I don't have any like traditional pets. There's a few rats that hang out by the trash cans downstairs. But we like to keep them out there. They're actually bigger than the neighborhood cats. I did see that one night. A rat was chasing a cat, and that cat had this look of "I'm going to die" in its face as it was running down the street being chased by this humongous rat. So
anytime I pull into my garage here in Chicago in the alley, I normally see a really big rat run across the alley. Then I realize that's no rat. That was our former mayor, Rahm Emanuel. That's when I gun the gas, but I miss him.
That's what I tell people. It's like, oh, I missed you. So I'll aim better next time. So anyway, yeah, this, I think Lainie and Tara, we talked about this when y'all were on for the Women in Independent Media show, and I think we were talking afterwards. We're like, man, we should do a Gen X show, because we're all Gen Xers, and we really only enjoy like yeah, I see the photo bomb back there, Jerry. I mean, we like talking to people, but like, Gen Xers, it's just, we're kind of like people on an island, and then we get rescued, and then like years later we have a reunion and we get together and we talk about our time being marooned on the island, and nobody knew where we were and no one cared about us until the ship got there. That sort of thing, I mean, is that how, are we really the forgotten generation? Who
I think so. I think so.
Why is that, Chris?
I think there are a lot of lessons people have forgotten from our generation, but go ahead.
Yes, a lot.
But I think the older boomers need to get down from Congress. We need to have them all step down from their crypts, like Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi. That's what I think. Then our generation should come in and try to fix things, and the millennials and everyone else. But yeah, so because they're boomers, right? That's Dianne Feinstein, I would think.
What strikes me about boomers is how easy it is for them to disparage millennials.
They love war.
I've never liked that.
They've created a complete effing mess for millennials to have to live through. They don't want to listen to them. They've left no income security. They've left no opportunity for them to own homes. They've left no opportunity for them to earn a fair living wage. And when the millennials come forward with good ideas, the boomers disparage them. And I will also say, I do think that sadly there are some members from Generation X that do the same thing. I love millennials. I feel like anytime I'm around younger people, I learn from them, and I hear them tell me that they also are glad to learn from me, because I don't marginalize or look at them as younger people. I look at us all as equals trying to sort this thing out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way too. I feel more I don't know. I have better communication with younger people than I do the older folks. And to what you were saying, Tara, don't you think that 90-year-old people really care about the future of young people, because they have so many more years to go themselves? Anyway, you know,
I saw this clip in Jimmy Kimmel, the CIA ops that has a talk show, and he had Joe Biden on there, and Joe Biden was, talking smack about how awful the press is because they ask questions, things like that. And then they were talking about Republicans, and he said, well, they need to go to jail. Like they were talking about monopoly, and they were saying the Republicans were blocking everything. And he said, well, we got to get them. Oh, and here's my kitty making an appearance. Hello. We gotta put them in jail. So it's gulag, according to Biden, for every opposing political view. So there you have it.
Well, yeah, that's the old school mentality. It's like, we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. I was like, yeah, well, that was the college cost a nickel back then when you were going going to school.
Like $1.50 a credit, something like that, half a credit.
That's all the stuff that they forget. They forget that people could own homes, that it was a more affordable time to live in. They were making a living wage. The wages were equal to the cost of living. When you have our minimum wage not rising with the costs of living, and you've got people who are saddled with school debt that they'll never be able to pay off. This is what boomers don't realize. And I do correct them a lot. I mean, not to disparage my parents, but when they talk about this, oh, they want free school and they want free college, we had to pay for it. I'm like, yeah, to your point, I think, Warren, did you say that's when it costs a nickel, or when you could go to a public college and afford it?
Right. It's like you said, with the wages back then, you could afford all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't like, I mean, if you, adjusted for inflation today, it still would be a decent chunk of change. But back then, they could afford that because their wages, if you adjusted for inflation today, were be close to like $20-something an hour now.
And why wouldn't you want more educated younger people in this country to help rebuild our infrastructure? There's a mentality that, well, if they're young, they can get a job in the service economy. One of the reasons our country is so behind after we've outsourced all of our industry is the fact that, boomers or those in higher positions of government or service say, well, people learn to need to code. Really? I'll tell you what, if you're a boomer or you're somebody older, you go learn to code. Okay, stop tossing that at everybody else. That we can't have a nation of coders. We need to have a nation of educated people, and the more educated people are younger, the more educated our younger generation is. Hopefully, that will provide a better possibility for our future that's been so hopelessly screwed up by the older generations ahead of us.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's the times have changed.
Is that
What's
a
that?
lion in the background?
A lion?
I heard a lion.
Like,
I don't know. Is that
like
a bus or a lion?
the king of the jungle? No, it was it's summertime here in Brooklyn, and that means get out your obnoxious motorcycles and troll through the neighborhoods as loud as you can with your garbage motorcycles.
I live out in the middle of nowhere, Warren, so I don't know like city sounds when I hear them. Sorry I interrupted.
We got the cars going by in the alley or along the street with the boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, and I'm like, your windows are rolled up, and I can still hear you like from literally, I don't know, like 300, 400 feet away, even when you're all the way down the block. That's the sound of summer here in Chicago, is people who've got their bass up in their cars because I guess they just can't hear it loud enough for themselves.
Now we sound like boomers, right?
These damn kids with the rock and roll. I gotta tell you this though, and this was a treat actually. No, I'm in the same boat. Usually Like somebody will roll by with the windows up and they got some of that reggaeton going on, that doon, 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 and I'm like, all right, whatever. But the other day, there was this guy, and I swear to God, he was wearing these Oakley wraparound shades, and he had T-tops, I think, in a Toyota Tercel. I don't know what it was, but it looked like one of those cars that just the T-tops did not fit. But he was blasting Phil Collins in the air tonight, all the way down at the end of the street. And it was like he did it for me. What he did is he came right here, because my window is right here to my left here. And there's a space right across the street. He pulled over because it got to that point of the song where it goes, "Well, the hurt doesn't show, but the pain still grows. No stranger to you and me." Blah, 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 blah. He had stopped. He stopped just for that part. I looked down and he's doing the drum thing. And then he pulls off like, okay, my work is done here. I have appeased the elderly folks in the building who like Phil Collins, and now I'm off to greener pastures. So I just thought that was a great story.
I want to clarify, it's not the music that bothers me. It's the fact that I can literally hear it down the block with their windows closed. Listen to it all you want, but I'm surprised their own car windows don't break with all the reverberation or the vibrations, from that far off with the volume that high.
Because I'm in rural America, I'm in the land of mullets. So that exude from the cars are like heavy metal, and then of course the classic Stairway to Heaven blasting down the country road. So not the same.
Even the mullets make sounds. That's what's beautiful. There's music coming out of the mullets. Now, Lainie, I know you were one of those people.
There was a New York Times article, and I usually ban the New York Times, but there was an article that said the mullets are making a comeback, and I thought,
oh no,
no. As we're speaking about those dated looks, I told Warren pre-show I've just watched two phenomenal streaming shows on cable internet. One is on Paramount Plus. The other is on Hulu. Paramount Plus is The Offer, about the making of The Godfather, which was set in the 1970s. The other is called Candy, which is also set in the 70s. It's on Hulu, and it's about this woman named Candace who had an affair and killed the guy's wife who she was having the affair with. But they're both series are set in the 70s, and it was kind of funny to me to reflect on the era that we grew up in is now defined by Hollywood when they make a movie as a period piece. And production values of both shows, though, from the wardrobe to the shag carpeting and the homes to the sideburns and the bushy hairstyles to the glasses of the 70s, I was just like, it really reminded me of what it was like to grow up in that time. I'd kind of forgotten. And because they paid such great attention to detail, and both are great shows anyway, just from the stories. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get into time, the last time I've talked about a TV program literally being like a time machine to me is Boardwalk Empire, which I thought was like a time machine to the 1930s and 40s by virtue of the production values. But if you really want to remind yourself what the late 70s and early 80s were like, check out those two shows. As we're talking about our Generation X, they're like time machines for me visually to kind of remind me, oh yeah, I'm remembering now what it was like growing up during that era with the attention to detail that the production designers and artists on these shows have provided.
Yeah, now that goes to the thing I want to talk about tonight too, was where everybody grew up. Like, where were you in the 1970s and in the 1980s? So Lainie's been talking all night, so I'm going to pass on her.
So it turns out, Jerry and I, now, of course, we're colleagues over at Hard Lens and 99 Perspectives and all
esteemed
that.
Esteemed
colleagues. Highly esteemed. Well, Jerry's my highly esteemed colleagues. I don't know how he feels about me.
Oh, you're me too.
But Jerry and I actually did not. I mean, you grew up in Wilmette, right?
I grew up in Wilmette. Yeah, I was born in Chicago. Parents moved to the suburbs, I think, when I was around 3 or 4. Wilmette, which is the north suburbs of Chicago. So it's a privileged community. It was schools. That's why they moved us there.
Yeah, and that's like my parents. They left the city in the 60s, and I was adopted in 1969 and grew up in Arlington Heights, then Des Plaines, but then Park Ridge. another very privileged community, but definitely on the northwest side, where Jerry was more north, I was more northwest. And so, yeah, that's where I was for all that time, and didn't move back into Chicago proper. I didn't move into Chicago proper until the late '90s. I went to grad school in Evanston, which is kind of a city. It's a suburb technically, but it's kind of its own city just north of Chicago.
It's like a mini Chicago, Evanston.
Yeah, kind of like Oak Park in that respect too. They're like, there's it's a very different kind of a culture. It's not like you think of a suburb as being, but
yeah, it's not a suburb. Yeah, when you think of suburb, you have a specific idea for suburb, and Evanston and, like you said, Oak Park kind of have more of a city Chicago vibe, like residential Chicago vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right on.
Really cool.
Chris, where were you? You have you always been West Coast?
No, I'm a transplant. Like more than half the people out here. I'm from Dayton, Ohio originally, born and raised. On the west side of Dayton. Yeah. I moved here in '92 after I got the military, about a year after, yeah.
Oh, okay. How long you been out in LA?
Since 1992.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Well,
what part of LA are you in, Chris?
Well, I lived all over. I had the fortunate experience living all over, but right now I'm in the Marina Del Rey, which is in the beach communities. Santa Monica is my closest one, Huntington Beach between those two, and Playa Del Rey. Yeah,
I spent 10 years in LA, mostly around Hollywood. From God, when was it? 2006? No, God, 1996 through 2007. Yeah, so
that was the best time, actually.
Interesting time back then. Yeah.
It's very different. Yeah,
interesting memories.
We got even better once they legalized pot out there. So it was a little bit but it didn't really matter because people were getting pot out there all the time. So I was out there. I moved out there in 2003 from the South. I spent most of my time in the South. I've told Jerry and Lainie before that I was born in Chicago. My dad lived there. He lived there for about 30 years. He was kind of the same thing. He got out of the Navy in after World War II, and couldn't find work down south, so he went to Chicago. Met my mom there, who was from Detroit, and my sisters know a lot more about Chicago than I do. I was only like 2 when we moved back down south, but my dad would make sure that he told me every story, well, almost every story that he could possible about what life was like in Chicago. Although I do remember one instance when I was a wee one, locking myself in the bathroom and taking Comet Cleanser and just dusting the place for prints. Because I was a bit of an ADHD kid back then, and I liked being hyper, and apparently I liked having Rip Taylor parties with Comet Cleanser. So,
how many people Taylor?
I do.
Yeah. You remember Rip Taylor? You don't remember Rip Taylor.
Yeah,
I saved my Rip. I saved my Rip Taylor material for these folks, for you guys. So
who's on Carson?
Who's Rip Taylor? Wait, okay.
Rip Taylor.
Sorry.
Yeah, he was the host of the $1.98 beauty show, and he would.
Lord, I remember that they had all those corny shows.
Oh, yeah, show. Okay, you
throw
know
the confetti.
What? I have of television, like watching, because we didn't have my parents weren't into so I wasn't allowed to watch certain shows and stuff, so I missed out on certain things, but I saw Star Trek reruns.
Awesome. Those are the best. Tara, you can probably go to YouTube after the show and Google, search for Rip Taylor and see the craziness.
Okay.
Yeah. That's something I remember from our era. So talking about Rip Taylor, entertainers from that era, who remembers the Dean Martin roasts or staying up late?
They were amazing.
And all the
they were
Everybody
so
was hammered
adult.
too. They were just like
They were
shit
all
faced
lit
the
up,
whole
yeah, they
time.
were.
Just you saw the drinks on the table. They weren't even hiding it either. Like Dean Martin, I got a fine thing to say. Hey everybody, I'm pretty about 8 sheets to the wind, y'all. But let me tell you about Don Rickles over here. He's a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying?
The beautiful
That's
thing
my
about
Dean.
that generation is we didn't have to worry about all the political correctness with our entertainers, at least on the air.
No, yeah.
Right. I never
Right.
got earmuffs from my parents whenever like some of that risque stuff. Like in the 70s, like some real like controversial stuff was going on television, like Soap, that show Soap.
Remember that? They used to have panel discussions, like when it was first coming on the air. Soap, they actually had these panel discussions beforehand to discuss the nature of it. Now, personally, I think a lot of that was marketing because they wanted to get people so riled up about this show that was supposed to be so explicit,
So
which it
scandalous.
really wasn't.
No,
Risque.
not at all.
And-
It wasn't scandalous at all.
But I feel like part of that was some really clever marketing. Now, Soap was a great show. I actually back in like the 2000s, I got the DVDs and watched it, and I'm like, this is some really good television. But yeah.
Well, Lainie, I remember there was a time where All in the Family and Maude were controversial too.
Oh, they were
in the very liberal 70s or mid to late 70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Growing up as a
And
kid watching
you know,
this.
but they had discussion on Maude about an abortion, and now interestingly enough though, daytime television had done it even earlier. I want to say it was 1971 on All My Children. Erica had an abortion, and that was, but they allowed that on daytime television, but I think it wasn't until Maude came out that it became, kind of a prime time thing.
Yeah, and
Family
that was right
Hour,
around
too.
and that was the same time around in 73 with Roe v. Wade. So that was a big hot button topic
And look,
back then as well.
we've come full circle since then.
Yeah.
For me, Chicago was the big city because when I was a little kid, I grew up in Wisconsin on a farm. So going to Chicago was but my mom she started Art in the Park in Wausau, Wisconsin. So they still have it. And she was one of the founders of that because she was an artist.
That's
and
so
then
cool.
she also got, she was an organizer for Committee Against Racism and the Progressive Labor Party in Chicago. So we would travel down there and we would go to marches and now I don't like to go to marches because I went to them as a kid. I think I just went to so many of those. And my mom was very active with the anti-war movement in the early 70s. I don't remember too much of that. But there's a letter that we have somewhere in her stuff of the Wisconsin Library asking politely if she would stop having her meetings about sending boys to Canada and said, could you please stop committing treason in the Wausau Public Library? And it was just it's so funny because my brother and I were talking about it recently. We're trying to find the letter because it was so polite. But it was like, but they used the word treason. And it was just like, okay. But it was such a nice way to say, could you please not have your treasonous meetings, we got to,
Don't you know?
emotional.
Speaking of libraries, do people go to libraries anymore? Because it seems like we've all got our libraries in our hand everywhere now.
Well, it's kind
I
of.
have not been in a library in a long time.
Only if the internet's out because they have Wi-Fi. So
I wanted to ask the LA folks. Like I spent a lot of time in LA because I moved all over. So I lived in Athens, Georgia, and I lived in Monterey, California, is where I was born. I lived down in Los Angeles near Hollywood, Glendale, Pasadena, and all that area. But what is do you all remember? Just like the outdoor, just seems like there were so many more outdoor concerts and they were just so much fun in Los Angeles. And I don't know, I have fond memories of that. Yes.
Those stopped around the early aughts. From 94 to 2001, they had the Jazz Festival on UCLA every year. Now, no one even remembers it. It's really, really sad.
Oh, that is sad.
Yeah. And that was the primary one, but there were always little concerts. Like Santa Monica had a jazz festival. We would go and sit at Santa Monica College and watch all the reggae bands, and there'd be cookouts and people spread out.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I missed the barbecues and everyone getting together and
I
all
go to
that.
all of those. Yeah, because I was never really a club person. I don't like clubs. I'm much more a live music type of guy. So I would go with my friends. We go every summer. Every summer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the Gypsy Kings? Remember them performing?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
They're still performing. I think they're going to be performing.
Good.
Yeah, like that was fun. Is your kitty sneezing? That's so cute.
Yes, he's got the sniffles.
I love that.
Yeah.
Allergic to
but,
Gen Xers.
But we used to, my friends and I in Wisconsin, when we'd have sleepovers, we'd lay there with a transistor radio and we'd get on a Chicago radio station. It was really scary. Get on the Chicago station and listen to all the Chicago talk, big city talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only when I was growing up down south, I feel like I was kind of cheated. I really growing up, I thought, man, I really wish I would have grown up in Chicago in a big city, you know. So the only I guess taste of a big city that I had was being close to New Orleans. Right. So when you went to New Orleans, it was like going to another country. You know, there was like music everywhere, old school architecture and stuff like that. And it just felt like you were escaping the 70s and 80s feel of the South back then. And it was very basic, you know. I mean, like where I went to school, there wasn't like, I mean, there may have been people smoking pot or something like that, but for the most part, it's a very, you know, it's like Mississippi is part of the Bible Belt. You know, it may even be the buckle of the Bible Belt. You know, so a lot of people were pretty much on the straight and narrow. Did their things on the sides. You know, a lot of drinking. Oh God, a lot of drinking, but you know, not like hard drugs or anything like that. But you know, then when I moved to LA in 2003, it was great because you're just very limited in the South as far as like you have Southern culture, right? Like your food and music, those are two big aspects of Southern culture, but it's just you're either white or you're black if you live down south. Maybe Asian if you live along the coastlines, but then I got to LA and it was just like people were from everywhere, and it was just everything that I had wanted to have in my youth. And I think
huge culture shock when I got out here, even being in the military, because in the military it's kind of like black, white, Hispanic, maybe like one Asian, maybe.
Yeah.
But when I got to LA, it was like everything, and it was like a sensory overload for me. It took me a while to adjust. It really was.
It took me a little bit
problems, but just the flood of cultures all at once here in LA, being, you know, Midwestern born. I come from the Midwest, pretty much black and white in Ohio, pretty much. And the geographical lines are drawn as well. So there wasn't much co-mingling growing up until the busing thing happened. Then that was like a game changer for everybody in Dayton. So yeah, I went through all that, the busing, going across town, 25-minute ride to Overwright Junior High School, and being one of the black kids getting off the bus. I still have dreams about it. My first day was not good. It was not good. I'm not gonna lie. There is no good ending to that first day story. It was just not good at all. Mm-hmm. Going from class to class, even going to the bathroom, you know, with the other students, you know, it was really just weird, really weird.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, back then, I mean, when we were like, most of us were in elementary school, that wasn't too far off from you know, the days of segregation and whatnot. You know, it maybe a decade at the most, maybe less than that for, you know, some of us. But it just seemed like, I don't know, once the 80s hit in Mississippi, and you would think, well, okay, you know, Mississippi's always had its problems, obviously. I mean, history bears that out. But you know, it was you found that education, I think we was talking about this before, why isn't education prioritized? Where I lived, education was prioritized, right? And it didn't matter what color you were. If you were smart and you did well, you were celebrated. and and you got a chance to go to school, get a full ride at some of the state colleges at least. If you're a real brainiac, you maybe got to go to one of the bigger schools, but but this was like right on the cusp, right before student loans got privatized. You were still getting student loans, Pell Grants, that kind of thing from the government. But
I remember
then,
those days.
yeah, or GI Bill too.
Yeah.
And
But that
and
Pell
then
Grant, I was a long time. The Pell Grant, that was a big thing when I was growing up.
Pell Grants, yeah. When I was living in Athens, Georgia, we used to have, unfortunately, there was race riots, and it was in the 80s, and that was still going on, and that was like a shock because I came from the West and the North, right? So I wasn't familiar with the South, and that's not where any of my relatives were from. So we were just like plunked down in Athens, Georgia. My mother was working for public television, I think, and at the time, and I just remember, I had a boyfriend who was Black, and he was a basketball player, and we would meet after practice, but we'd have to sneak around because we couldn't publicly be seen together. And then I had another friend who was in my drama, because I was a big drama geek, theater geek, and they had two things that were big at our high school, and it was football and theater. And like the theater was big, like everybody went to the play in town. And so anyway, one of my friends, he was a dancer, and he was, we used to have to walk him home so he wouldn't get beat up and stuff. And like we would all walk in a group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that some of the rednecks wouldn't come, because we had rednecks that would come up to the school with guns on their gun racks. Right. And they'd have the horn that went, that.
Gosh.
And,
horn.
huh?
And they have Confederate flags hanging off the back of their pickups.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, so stereotypical. It was just bizarre. And it's when that show was popular, and I can't
Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard.
Hazzard, yeah. The General Lee horn. Yes, I've heard it. Yeah.
So they were all imitating that. It was really a different time. But what was interesting? I vividly remember this. Herschel Walker came to our school because he played for UGA at the time with Buck Bellew. And they were best friends. And Buck Bellew was a quarterback. He was white. Herschel Walker was an amazing athlete. I mean, like, I've never to this day seen an athlete and seen that kind of demonstration of athletic ability, like watching those football games at the University of Georgia. And he came to our school and talked to everyone after a race riot, and it calmed everything down. Like, he and Buck Bellew came and had a hard talk with everybody, and at a big gathering, and it made a difference. It did. I'm sorry to hear that he's a Republican now, but I found him at that time. He was a hero, to everyone at that time. So now he's a Republican.
Yeah, he's running against Raphael Warnock. And he's leading Raphael Warnock. He was one of the $2,000 check guys in Georgia, and then it turned out only to be 1,400. So him and Ossoff was the other senator. Ossoff is fine. I think he's got a full term, so he's got like another 5 years or so. I think Warnock he won a special election, and now this is the general election for that seat. So he could be out. So I remember Herschel Walker. I remember when he played for Georgia. I remember when he played for the Cowboys too. Way back in the day.
Great career.
Yeah, he was him, and then later Bo Jackson came along and was just like those two guys. Probably they'll never be cats like them. They'll never be anybody that.
Yeah, Herschel Walker does like martial arts. Didn't he win the gold in bobsledding or something? Was that was Herschel, right?
I think so. Some odd sport that you don't really associate with Georgia.
He just do everything. It was amazing. He was just like, he was really cool. And he's also a sexual assault survivor, which is interesting. And he talked about that and wrote a book about it. Yeah, he's an interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, child sexual assault. And he talked about the trauma and trying to work through it. And I think, he felt like he self-sabotaged sometimes in his life. And yeah, like that's interesting. He's made a lot of powerful changes, like in that community that he's from as well. Like he really gave back Like he wasn't one of those athletes that just like made good and then took off. He really gave back to his community. So, I'm kind of sad that he's kind of, pro-Trump or pro that Republic. But again, I'm not really partisan. I shouldn't even say that because I'm not Republican or Democrat, and I don't know. It's all
a lot of us gave up that ghost.
Yep, a long time ago.
A while back, So let me ask y'all this. These shows, they go by quick, y'all. I mean, they go by super quick because when you're having a good time flies. So I want to go around the horn here and talk about like maybe something from when you were a kid, or maybe when, it doesn't matter, 70s, 80s, even your early adult lifehood, that you learned about back then, that you still take those lessons today to heart, and you're actually using those lessons in today. Chris, if you want to go first.
Well, to encapsulate that question, to give you a good answer, I would have to say fear of failure. There have been different stages in my life where I've been taught about how to deal with failure and not to celebrate or over celebrate success. It's okay to acknowledge success, but my father used to always say, my mother as well, is that your true lessons are learned through failure and how you adjust. And I still do that today, even with what I've gone through recently in my career, being terminated because of the vaccine mandate and having to kind of like really like start over, literally. That was very scary. Something I'd never first anticipated doing. And second, to be able to rebound from that, because there were some very, very low points to where, my confidence was shaken, not broken, but severely shaken to where I was like, whoa. It was like a whoa moment. So I have to say my lessons in learning how to deal with failure, and then turning those experiences into, either a good result or what one may call success. That's my story.
Lainie, what about you?
I think for me was the openness to new and different things. There were a lot of changes that happened in that transition from the 70s, 80s into the 90s in this country, culturally and socially. And I think, the internet was a big part of it. Is that transition from having to, from rotary dial phones and having to pay an extra charge to the phone company if you had a touch-tone phone, all the way into the web, getting on the web and eventually, smartphones and living through that. Some people, even in our age group, never got on board. And some of us that did. And so that was something that was an opportunity to really kind of stretch my understanding of science and technology. And I think that opened up a lot. There were also just a lot of other cultural things that happened socially, in terms of even just down to things like cuisines. American cuisine was also radically changed during that time to incorporate foods from different cultures. But I think that there were just a lot of shifts, and there was that opportunity to go from a much more homogenized and, I guess you could say, technologically, the technology shifted too. So there were all these shifts, and that was an opportunity to open up.
Tara, what about you?
I had to move around a lot. I mean, my family moved around every 3 to 4 years. So for me, it was learning to connect and let go and be okay with that, because it's hard when you're a kid and you develop deep friendships and then you have to let it go. And then I had an experience in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, where my brother got cancer, my older brother, and then he passed away. He died. And it was a big shift, and it was trying to walk through grief, but also honor his life and his memory, and let go. And so it was all about connecting and letting go. So I guess that's what it was about.
Jerry, what about you, man?
We talked a little while ago about education and how we would hope that our culture would prioritize education. I grew up, as I said, in Wilmette. I went to high school in Winnetka to New Trier High School, which was then touted, and I think still is touted as one of the best high schools in the nation. And they prioritized education. And at the time I was there, I always got a sense that it was a very liberal mindset in how they taught history, how we learn the lessons of thinking that we've been through civil rights, we've got a much brighter future ahead of us. There seemed to be a mindset of embracing other cultures, of moving forward with fairness and equity. And as we hit the 80s, suddenly stuff started like reverting and going backwards once Reagan got into office. And as we've seen deregulation and the extreme conservative Christian right start to peel back and fuel the flames or fan the flames of pitting everybody against each other, whether it comes to religions or races or different cultures. So one of the things I take from my experience as a Generation Xer is really from the education I'm grateful for getting at a time where it seemed that I thought America was facing a brighter future, and I think that it's gotten a little bit darker. And I just hold on to the things that really seemed to leave an impression on me as a younger person, because I think it was after that, when I got into college, after I left high school, that I started getting a little bit more politically aware. I was very much a critic of the first Iraq War, that Bush Sr. had initiated. And I think that was kind of like my political social awakening at that time. And it was always because I remembered what I was taught in high school from I don't want to say, maybe liberal is, that word has been demonized, but I think socially aware, and even social justice has been demonized. I mean, social justice used to be a good word. And I think now, unfortunately, it's just gone to the absolute extreme. But I had good teachers in my history classes that I think were fair about showing what we came out of the 60s and the 70s hoping for our future. And that's what I've retained as I'm involved as as much as I can be as a big mouth on YouTube, social media activist, participating where I can in, marches, protests. I spent a lot of time when I was in Los Angeles for 10 years. That was during the second Iraq War, after 9/11. And I got very, very active there too. And it was always remembering, it's like, this isn't the future. I remember my instructors and my educators in high school showing us a brighter future was ahead of us. So I don't know, for what it's worth, that's kind of what I take from my experience growing up and being educated during the late 70s and early 80s.
That's really a good point, because I was raised in a very politically active family. My mom was an activist, as I had said, and so I grew up with that mindset. And it was interesting to see the transition you're talking about in the 80s to the Reagan era, and how that impacted just social discourse and the way everybody thought. It just kind of, and also, people started, that's when homelessness really started rising. And for me, it was an awakening. What I take from that time is that awakening politically, of how passionate I felt about, animal rights, about racism, about the wars, about nuclear power. I was at first anti-nuclear power. Now I'm kind of looking at it I don't know. I'm still kind of examining it, but we don't know what to do with the waste and that kind of thing. So it led me to that path of politics, but yeah. And it's interesting what you're talking about, how the education system was different. Like, I remember teachers that were I remember a teacher telling us that we were heading towards overpopulation and and this is before climate change talk, but talked about recycling before it was really talked about. It was interesting. Yeah, it is, but it galvanized those ideas. Yeah.
And it's funny too, because as I mentioned, in the community I grew up in, I thought when I was there, looking back on it, that it had at that time, not so much now, but Democrat liberal tended to lean more towards equality and recognizing other people's rights and having respect for each other and giving more rights to people, or making sure that rights were in place. And that community, I think, is more Republican now than it was when I was younger. And I think that I don't know if the mindset shifted, or if maybe it was more Republican than I realized in the educators were more liberal and progressive minded in, sharing with us the importance of civil rights and how we'd made these steps forward, and how, since leaving high school and getting older and, developing more critical thinking skills, reflecting on it now. And I think that, Tara, the word that you used was perfect. It's an awakening. What we came out of the late 70s and early 80s as we got older and were more aware was an awakening politically, and what we'd learned growing up from the times we lived in that seemed to be more. I mean, we talk about this on Hardlands Media in Chicago Corner, how back then whistleblowers were celebrated. Woodward and Bernstein, Daniel Ellsberg with the Pentagon Papers, they almost took down Nixon. Now whistleblowers are imprisoned. It's like, how do we come out of the 70s and early 80s celebrating whistleblowers trying to share truth so that we could take down corrupt representatives? I don't want to call them our leaders because they're not leading. And now these representatives are criminalizing whistleblowing, whether it's Edward Snowden or I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and they're criminalizing poverty. I mean, and that started with Reagan with homelessness. They're criminalizing mental health and criminalizing poverty. And I mean, and that's not Democrat or Republican. That's just our society right now. It's just like for instance, in Tennessee, it's a felony to camp. So in other words, the people that are homeless could face 20 years in prison because
they have no opportunities for a job, and they're going to throw them in jail because they can't find a job or have any kind of standard of living or have any opportunities. Yeah, it's like we're racing backwards. Well, we've already made the point, I think, in a lot of our shows or live streams or channels, that we're kind of, the mindset is like back to the Gilded Age, where there's such a disparity of wealth. And as you talk about criminalizing poverty, and it's like the haves are trying to like take us back to reserve economy, even to the degree where you've got these huge corporations buying up real estate and housing so that they can force people into more of a rental economy that they can't afford housing or owning on their own. It's crazy. I mean, this isn't what I learned in the late 70s and 80s as far as the bright future America was supposed to be looking forward at.
Right.
Think about too, everything dovetailed around the time Reagan got into office, right? Okay, so you have Reagan comes into office, cable TV, 24-hour cable TV comes, and which with that 24-hour news comes in.
News cycle
into play too. News cycle.
Hate radio started proliferating the airwaves. Hate radio.
Yeah, more so. I mean, it had been around, but it was really coming into its own in the 80s, and all of that came together at the same time, right? So that's to me now. I didn't see it back then, but looking back, it's like that's when. I mean, we've always been propagandized as a country, but when all those elements came together, when Reagan and cable news, and then you started getting where video games started coming, like home video games, more of a distraction for the kids and some adults too. This whole fervor around the digital age and stuff like that. And that was 40 some odd years ago. And look where it's taken us to today, where we are just like, so we need that instant gratification now, right? We can't disseminate news for ourselves. We have to listen to people's opinions in order to get our news. We're not listening to facts anymore. We're listening to opinions about maybe facts, that kind of thing. And now here we are. I think there's like some sort of law in the books in Florida where like if you have certain political leanings, you could lose your job or something like that. I'm not too fresh on what that is. It's some crazy business. People getting censored left and right, not just on social media, but also on television, on the radio, your legacy media as well. And it's just, we as Gen Xers, we were at ground zero for all that stuff. Some of us were paying attention, but some of us, we were caught up in it too.
I would also add, when conservatives were able to really take the reins of power when Reagan was in office, and start taking us backwards, and then, hand it off to the Democrats who've become more conservative. I always say that there are no liberals or real progressives or Democrats in this country. Democrats have gone right and rights have gone the conservatives have gone batshit crazy. And I'm a big movie guy. That's my other big love. There was a great movie, a little bit of it dramatized, but I would really advise, if you really want to get a sense of what happened during the Reagan era and how it led to the Bush era and everything that we're dealing with since then, is the movie Vice with Christian Bale. He plays Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was a big part of what was going on behind the scenes during the Reagan administration. And you see all the other peripheral characters during that era influencing Republican politics and this embracing of extreme conservative religious ideals that, are supposed to be separate in this country, and how so much of that influence, Warren, kind of took us in the direction you were talking about with 24-hour news cycles and cable news. We no longer have our Walter Cronkites, who are just reporting the news. We have people yelling opinions at each other with an agenda all the time. And I that's the other thing I take from our generation. I think we were the last generation that can probably remember real journalism, real news, real truth telling to whatever degree that they could, to help to help stoke the flames of our political awareness. Awakenings.
Definitely. Well, I've held you all captive long enough.
Oh, I love it.
So
yeah, I'm cool.
I feel like we're on Krypton, and I've put you in the Phantom Zone for an hour, and your way out of the Phantom Zone was to say all this great stuff that you said tonight. And so now I shatter the Phantom Zone. You're free. We're gonna do another Gen X night for sure.
Love it.
Maybe we'll do it on that.
I would love
that. We'll do it on a weekend whenever people aren't going out to the video store and getting VHS copies of Prince and the Purple Rain. So I went a long way for that joke. Sorry, that was
we didn't even touch on music and culture and other things. Although politics is a very, very important place, I think, from where all of us are coming from in our respective podcasting, live streaming, and commentary on YouTube and social media.
And isn't that a testament to Gen X? We just we think about the most important stuff first, right? Like I said, we were going to talk about music and pop culture and stuff, but then here we are talking about stuff that's important, and I'm glad we did that. So that gives us an opportunity to. This is part one. We'll call this part one. We're gonna have Gen X Night part 2, and that one
we should do Warren. Warren, we should go around before we leave and just give their quintessential song that like represented like a summer they loved or something like that. Like, what was your song that reminded you of that space and time?
Yeah, let's okay, so let's do this. So we're gonna go around the horn. Everybody tell us where they can find you and all that good stuff. And also, what is your solid tune, your ride or die? We'll go in reverse this time. Jerry, Chicago Batman, what you got?
Well, you can find me here on YouTube at Chicago Corner as a political pundit. I also appear every once in a while over at Hardlands Media with Kid Cabello and Lainie. Hopefully, Lainie, I'll have you on Chicago Corner soon. You can find me on social media at Nightstar Pro, NITESTAR Pro. I am a filmmaker, political news junkie. My company's name is Nightstar Productions, and my quintessential song as a Gen Xer that is still my quintessential song today is Under Pressure with Bowie and Freddie Mercury. That's my theme song, Under Pressure.
I know, right? So same how that's a kind of a lasting thing too, even today, right?
They're all gone. Those two vocalists are gone, but that song is just it endures time.
Well, and Vanilla Ice really made it famous. Anyway, Tara, my INN sister, what is going on with you? Where can people find you? The song of
I have
all
a
songs.
I have a special edition of my show, the podcast, The Politics of Survival, on Saturday. If y'all want to join me, I have on Ava Bartlett is a Canadian independent journalist who has been put on a kill list by the Ukrainian military, and she is now in Donbass. She's went back there today, and instead of and she has a U.S. passport and a Canadian passport, and the U.S. government and the Canadian government did not help her, or nor has the media given any press until yesterday. They did a hit piece on her with some other journalists. I might be kind of alluded to, but I'm not in there yet. Thank God. But it's about the Kremlin sponsored journalists is what they call it. And anyway, it's by someone who's going to be running the Ministry of Truth. They're reviving. So that came out in NBC. So you can look for that hit piece they did on Ava. But I was just so disgusted that here she's on this kill list. She's really at risk. And that kill list isn't a joke. It's from the Ukrainian military. 2 journalists have already been killed. One's disappeared. And, I'm just, so I'm having her on my show. So listen, she has a lot of good things to say. She's been on the ground in the Middle East. She's been on the ground in Ukraine, and she just doesn't follow the State Department talking points, and they don't like what she has to say. And so that's big. So you can find me at Twitter at Reade Alexandra and see my shows. And I appreciate INN and Indy and Reef and all them. So my song when I was a kid is actually an older song even then, but it's Stevie Wonder that's like my summer song. It just reminds me of being in the yard with a sprinkler and drinking lemonade and running around with my friends and screaming. And we danced to As by Stevie Wonder, like the Stevie Wonder songs and all that.
I know.
Nice memory.
Yeah.
Lainie Fofani.
All right. So you can find me Hardlands Media. I do the show called Civically Minded on Thursdays with Kit Cabello. So you can find me there. You can also find me at World Perspectives Radio Chicago. It's now an internet radio station, hopefully eventually a terrestrial station here in Chicago that I am starting up. I do several shows, including a wine report for Chicago and an afternoon show on Wednesdays and also a civically minded radio show on Wednesdays as well. You can find all of that at 99perspectives .tv. That's where you can find all of our Hard Lens 99 Perspectives, Chicago Corner, World Perspectives Radio, Chicago stuff. I'm also part of a project with WBCQ Radio, The Planet, which is an FM station as well as a shortwave station out in Monticello, Maine, where I'm part of a group called the Radio Angela Project. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to revive shortwave radio. So it's not just a whole bunch of hate preachers and flat earthers. And I'm not joking about that. We are doing incredible cultural programming, radio theater. We've got music, poetry, and right now I am doing poetry readings during intermissions on Concert Hall, Orchestra Hall, which is a classical music. But then starting in July, I'm going to be doing something called Orwellian Airways with Lainie Petersen, and I'm going to be reading 1984.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah. On this project. So it's an incredible project. If anybody is interested, you can find me over on Twitter, and I can tell you a little bit more about what this group of people is doing.
And your song of choice is
The Spirit of Radio by Rush.
Ooh, it connects. Very nice.
Begin the day with a friendly voice, a companion unobtrusive.
When they were on Bob and Doug McKenzie, Geddy Lee said,
Geddy Lee, yeah.
$10 is
Take
$10.
off to the great wide.
Take off,
to the great wide north. I have to squeeze certain parts of my body to get that high note, and I won't say which ones. But
I'll get that. I'll get those notes.
Oh,
there you go. I was waiting for that to come out. We'll
get Cat of Nine Tails. Don't have one of those yet. But yeah.
It's so funny. Okay. He's coming over. He came over when you saw that crop out. Your little kitty was like, "Hey, come over."
You got the cat of one tail so far. You just need
the cat of one tails, right? Chris, I know you're a man about town. You got a lot of things going on. Where I know people can find you on Twitter. What's going on with you, brother? And of course, your song.
Well, actually, I do not have that much going on. I am the common man. I am, as we spoke pre-show, I'm just trying to survive in this very expensive state of California, and tackling each hurdle as they come. I can be found on Twitter at Bushido Food at 49ers, and I offer the occasional political commentary. I assassinate congressional tweeters who do nothing for the people. And my song is Prince's Little Red Corvette, the 12-inch version, not the release. The 12-inch.
Yeah. Yes, I know it.
Ooh.
Good song. Exactly what I'm talking about.
Purist. I like that.
Yes.
When it comes to music, I'm like, yeah, don't fuck around with music. All right. That's, what's your jam is your jam. And, you come correct with that. So,
yes. And R.I.P. Neal Peart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
There's so many.
I was really crying. I was really sad. Yeah.
And you know what? We should put another song in there. I mean, of our that should be reverberating through right now the airwaves is Gil Scott-Heron's, which is kind of poetry and song as well. The revolution will not be televised.
Yeah.
Right on.
We'll be live.
Yes.
I'm a little busier these days on the webs. Thanks to Independent News Network. I am so glad Indy and Reef invited me to be part of this this group of ne'er-do-wells and scallywags that are doing good things, breaking stories and talking to people and having a good time and getting to know people. That's the thing about having all of you on in particular, but in general, just getting to know everybody in the space. And when you know each other and you find common ground and even kind of like each other, you can move mountains together. So that's what it's all about. I'll keep everything brief for myself. You can find all my links in Linktree /extra Bulla. That's down below. This show is on Thursday nights. We are on YouTube and Rockfin now. Also on Odyssey and Twitch, Twitter, and probably some obscure moon channel that the aliens up there are listening to. I do a secret show on Friday and Saturday nights around midnight, and basically the chat runs the show. So I just read the chat. Whatever y'all want to talk about, that's what we do. And of course, chickens. I gotta have my chickens on there from Chicken City. They're my co-hosts. They're wonderful birds. Cock-a-doodle-doo. The song for me, this song, every time I hear it, I'm like Pavlov's dog. I'm always taken back in time to the 80s, to simpler times when I didn't have any cares in the world. All I had to worry about was making sure that I could roll up my jeans right, so that they're nice and snug. But I got a nice cuff too at the same time, with my kicks. Tears for Fears, Head Over Heels. That beginning piano thing every time gets me. I'm just like, oh shit, here I go. It's like the Aha video. I go from this colored world and then I go into this sketch art and I'm floating around, take on me, but it's dun 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 dun, and the video's great because it's got a chimpanzee in it, and I like chimpanzees, so that's kind of my thing. So I do want to thank all of y'all for being on tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, please do.
I forgot. I forgot to mention when people can find me on Chicago Corner. I broadcast Friday nights, and then Tuesdays I'm on Hardlands Media with Kit. So just people, I wanted to let people know what days they can find me.
Right on. And everybody here is great in everything that they do. So make sure if they have channels, make sure you like and subscribe to their channels and support them because they're doing a lot of hard work to try to keep us all on the straight and narrow and keep us informed and keep us away from the evil that persists out there. And there's real evil for sure. So everybody in the chat, I'll take.
And I'll just spank it away.
There you go.
You know, He didn't.
Sorry, Lauren. We're gonna take out the show. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
We're the social media superheroes.
We were so classy, and then
And then I showed up.
All right, Lainie, start see those women from independent media. I said.
all I'm missing is my GIMP suit.
you
I
ride
mean, I
horses,
have
Lainie?
one. I have a GIMP suit.
That's
That's
a Kim.
Excuse me, I
What a
forgot.
character.
zippity
He
doo
says
dah.
nothing, but he does everything. Yeah.
Warren, you
I do
just-
like a
yeah, we
spanking. I tell people every day it's my birthday, so I get a spanking.
That's right.
You know, wait, what
Happy
happened?
birthday, Uncle
He's ready for you.
Warren.
Hi, Uncle
Thank you,
Warren.
Ed Heller. Art, appreciate you coming out. Reef, Variant, thank you so much. I love my chat peoples. They're awesome. I appreciate y'all watching
Shout out to
and
the
supporting
chat.
the show. Kim,
Thank you.
my New York sweetie, good to see you. Atras, Fred, Edward, he's doing double duty. Him and Indy Left on here and on Rockfin. Thanks for
All right.
hanging out there. Angela, good to see you. All for Nothing. Jara, good to see you as well. I think I got everybody, maybe. Velvet Trance, yes, thank you so much. I think I said game.film. And everybody on Rockfin, I appreciate y'all as well. We're just doing nothing but growing around here. Rising tide lifts all boats. And hopefully we can, not just the people here, but everybody in the space that we know and respect, we can help each other out. And when we all work together, we can do great things together. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Wash your ass, especially
Thank you.
when you wear the GIMP suit, because you don't want a dirty ass GIMP suit.
And I don't
Wait.
want it getting my crop dirty either.
I'm proud to say I don't have a GIMP suit. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
That's a wrap.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.